Hi, welcome to Detours Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. And with us, we have again Amber, and we'll be talking about education, and she'll be sharing her experiences, and we'll just be having a casual conversation. And because this is an important topic to a lot of brain injury survivors. Amber?
Now, with the person with a brain injury, there's different things that they experience, like loss of hearing, loss of eyesight, their mental understanding is slowed down to a certain extent, and things like that. And the education system don't, for some of survivors, don't see the injury. They see a normal person, and we don't like that. Um, and they think, oh, they're fine. They shouldn't have all of these accommodations. But the individual education plan is set up for them to help the survivors get through school. But a lot of teachers don't like to go by that. And I had a lot of teachers that would put up a fight because I look normal. Again, we don't like that word. But I had teachers refuse to blow up my papers to make my writing bigger, refuse to have the speaker system in the classroom so I could hear them. Um, refuse to print out the projection stuff, the notes and stuff, and all kind of things like that. And it's ridiculous how for the ones of us who are not immobilized and things like that, even for the ones who are immobilized, but they look at us and they see that we who are not immobilized are up walking and talking and appear like everybody else outwardly, but they don't want to go by the accommodation with the education plan. I think I just went on 5 different.
No, but at the core of it all is the same problem. But first, they're breaking the law. It's federal law. And this is a problem not just for people with traumatic brain injury, kids with TBI, and adults with TBI. It's also a problem for anyone with an invisible disability. It's a violation of those who have behavioral disorders, psychiatric problems, who have learning disabilities, specific learning disabilities, mild, intellectual disabilities. Um, that's the new term for MR, what used to be MR. Any kind of disability that you cannot see, invisible disabilities, and that F word. Fine, yeah, I have a video where we talk about the F word. We don't like the F word, that F word. We like the other ones, but the F word, not cool. But yes, and that is a violation of your civil rights.
And I even saw with the special ed students, I spent a lot of time with them because I couldn't participate in PE, but I had a PE class, so I sat with them. I rode the bus with them. A lot of students, well, they were kids, but a lot of them were treated badly by their teachers because
Yeah.
they act.
That's the thing, is that kids with traumatic brain injury are considered special education or special needs students. They are a specialized minority population. In fact, we talked about this with Lisa, and her video. We're talking about kids, and there you can get either if it's milder, if it's like after an MTBI with milder symptoms, you qualify under 503 under the I'm trying to think of exactly what that is. She had mentioned that many months ago, but had mentioned that you have protections under the crap. I'd have to look that one up. It just slipped my mind. But you do have legal protections even without the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and under the ADA. the Americans with Disabilities Act, but you also have under the Rehabilitation Act. That's what it is. Under the Rehabilitation Act, you have uh, rights there, and under IDEA, which was passed in 19, God, what was that? 1994, I think. It's when I was hurt. But you do have rights under PL 94 142 and 101 476, which specifically mentions traumatic brain injuries in kids. That is specifically mentioned as a disability class. So you have civil right protections. And so teachers who violate that, if you carry that diagnosis, it's illegal to not follow what is in that plan. It's illegal
Mhm.
not to do that.
So
Unfortunately,
that
you've got to take it
oh,
to court and stuff like that, your district to court for not accommodating. You have the right to reasonable accommodations. Now that's where they fight you, is on whether it's a reasonable accommodation. But enlarging print or speakers or stuff like that, that's not unreasonable. That is, that is easy. The school's got those things. They've got enlargers in their copy machines and things like that. That is just violating your rights.
yeah,
And
and
any parents out there know they can meet that, for your kid.
on the like tests in college, um, some of our professors eh, timed the tests. I was supposed to get time and a half.
Right.
They which some made me still mess up on the tests, even though I'm highly intelligent.
You
Because
do have the right under the individual transition plan, which is something for university students. You do have the right to say, hey, now you have to make sure you have one of those, but you do have those rights also, and under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But you've got to advocate. You have to go and say, you know what, I have these legal rights, and remind them there are lawyers behind those, and there are lawyers to be glad to fight for you. And that's to you folks out there watching.
I'm considering going back to school for my I want to get a degree in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Um like neuropsychology, but all psychology. I love the mind. But in order
If
to
you
do
want neuropsych, that comes late after you have your general psych foundation. But because that's what I was studying. That's like that takes that's 13, 14 years.
in order
Yeah, uh,
to do that, I have to fight with the ADA and with the I have to fight with financial aid, and they cut it off every time I got dropped from one class because my grades were low because I was trying to focus on another class, and
mhm.
they many I got dropped the last time I went, and I lost my financial aid, which should be illegal because I have two brain injuries, and I'm under the ADA guidelines and stuff. But
I would recommend for you is finding every school, every university does have a disability office of some sort. You just got to find it. Some have it public, and others it's hidden somewhere in the the administrators, obviously the dean's office, someplace, but they all have one. So it's a matter of
and
finding it and using them well.
I also need to find a caseworker.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get in touch with the Brain Injury Association of Mississippi to see if they can assist me, but things about brain injury associations is they're run by people who don't have brain injuries, so they don't understand, and it takes them forever to help us.
Mhm.
But
Well, hopefully we can help you somewhat.
and I'm thankful for this organization, this company, because so far y'all have already helped me a lot with my mental focus and stuff just by talking with y'all. This is my first formative video, but
It helps all of us. We all have brain injury. So, it's like everyone who works, all of us from top to bottom, we all have brain injury. So, the problem is, of course, there are those symptoms, but, it's like you've got to speak for yourself. You've got to be, even, you know, it's like you get help, you get people backing you, but you've got to self-advocate. And parents who have kids with brain injury, you've got to be willing to fight, even if it means some, you know, even if it means some legal action,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, make them sweat.
My mama turned into a bear every time one of the teachers wouldn't follow the
Good,
guidelines.
good.
I Yeah, she'd go up there, and I wish I had all that on video.
That's
She
important though. That is so important. The ADA, and you know, you also have rights under the again, under the Rehabilitation Act, and you know, which is much older, but you also have the same, you know, protections for, you know, making sure people stick to the agreements and things like that. So I just like, you know, it's like encourage you to make sure that you're, that those rights to those accommodations, which you need not to get ahead, they're not cheats. They, it's kind of like saying you can't wear your glasses.
Mhm.
People are often like, well, gee, you shouldn't have that advantage. Whatever. It's not an advantage. It's giving somebody with brain injury or whatever the access to as much as they can, the same as everybody else. Again, it would be like taking your glasses and saying, well, you have to, nobody else needs the glasses in the classroom, or only two other kids need glasses in the classroom. You shouldn't have glasses. That's stupid.
Or
Um,
close the eye that you can't see out of, and then you'll be able to see everything, and we won't have to give you the projections about on paper instead of on.
my point is, a lot of folks who don't have brain injury are like, well, gee, why should we allow, you know, you allow you extra time and everything else? Well, the processing is slower. So it is to allow you to the same equivalent time. Because if you process at time and a half, you need to compensate for that. It's like saying, okay, to the normal person who needs glasses, we'll just take your glasses because nobody else needs those. That's giving you an unfair advantage.
Mm-hmm.
People are dumb. People are dumb. Unfortunately, that is a problem that we cannot fix. Like a lot of the teachers and a lot of the professors and things who don't understand, it isn't about being unfair. It is about making sure you level up so everyone is on the same playing field. And that's why these accommodations are necessary.
Mm-hmm. That's just about all I know on the education process.
Well, it's more about your experience. So, but you still managed to persevere. You still managed to graduate. You still managed to get into university. That's what matters.
Sorry, I got suspended once from school because with my I don't have the thought process to know what to say in stressful situations, and I was being bullied. And the only thing that came out of my mouth was, "I bet y'all would just be happier if I killed myself." They
Oh,
sus- School. I know that was wrong to say now, but at the time I didn't think about it. They suspended me from school for being a harm to myself and others, and those students who were bullying me got in no trouble.
I would have expected you would have hit one of them.
If
You
I
smacked.
was if I was in the mindset that I am now and had the muscles that I have, I'm not flexing, that I have now, then I would have thrown hands. Somebody would have had to hold my hair.
Mm,
But
yeah,
I was if you
yeah,
if
controlling our impulses sometimes is a little difficult.
mm-hmm. And
Yeah, and it's not intentional. I mean, that's always what I say is it's about intent. I mean, not intending to be, not wanting to be that way. It's not like doing it to be a jerk. We often say stuff and it's like, I didn't mean for it to be that way. It's just like,
yeah, I always say something and I'm like, wait, that was not supposed to come out of
oops,
my.
yeah, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't, it wasn't my intent. And really, that is where you differentiate between a brain injury and being a jerk, is intent. A person who's a jerk intends to do what they say, intends to cause hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Those of us now, disability doesn't give you an excuse. You need to do better, but it does explain why we mess up that way so often. Oops. Yeah, I do that a lot. I'll say stuff and or do something, and I'm like, what was wrong with me? It's like, I know what's wrong with me, but it's like, darn it, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hurt somebody's feelings. I didn't mean to, get
Mhm.
angry. I didn't mean to break a computer screen. I didn't mean to throw that across the room in anger and almost hit somebody.
I
Sorry.
wasn't out killing myself. I wasn't do that. That was a bad thing to say. I realized
Right.
that
Yeah.
at that day and time, I was what today's kids call emo.
Yeah.
That level,
Well,
like
that's
that.
an older term than you think. That's an older term than you think. It's probably 20 years old. That is an older term than you realize.
6 years younger than me.
Huh?
I said it's about as old as me. Well, 6 years younger than me.
Yeah, it's an older term than you realize. Um, we would have called it goth. Back in the 70s, the 80s, we would have called it goth or punk. Yeah,
Well,
but it's the same idea. Grunge.
I wasn't quite that deep into it. My hair wasn't
Neither
black,
was I, but I do know the term.
but I hung out with a bad crowd of people. That's the bad thing. It's another thing about education and brain injury. In
Mhm.
school, we can't. Well, I fit in to the crowd. Like I couldn't fit into the crowd, so I made myself. I wasn't in order for some of like for a group of the kids, any one of the groups to accept me. The emo crowd accepted me, and I started developing the things they did. The stupid stuff, as in the cutting, the crap like that. Thank God I got out of that.
But here's
Um,
the thing: a lot of people with brain injury, they do fit in with, the emo crowd or whatever. They do. That is, and many of the kids who are part of that group do have emotional as well as physical brain trauma, physical trauma. That is part of their crowd. That
yeah,
is the crowd you'd fit in with. For me, I was a nerd before I was hurt. I still am a nerd. I mean, anyone can tell me that, and anyone can tell you that I am. But um, I definitely had mental health issues. Not the same, but after my brain injury for sure. Um,
I don't remember what I was like before my first brain injury.
well, you were injured way younger than I was. I wasn't until I was in my 20s.
Before the second one, I was on a highway to hell. So,
Hmm. Well, again, also, we don't do kids very much service when it comes to brain injuries. We barely understand adult brain injury. We understand even less about brain injury in kids. And what we do know about adult brain injury is like doesn't necessarily apply to kids, and kids don't get the support they need.
yeah, I was talking about that the other day. I think it was on one of the calls. Um, y'all's brain injury happened after your brain had finished because I think your brain finishes growing by the age of 25.
25, 27, 30 depends, but in that range, most of the myelination of the frontal lobes are complete, and that's usually the part that takes the hit. Is the frontal lobe mainly, and that's like
And
executive of your brain.
and with mine, I was 9 years old, so my brain had not finished
A lot
forming.
of it's a lot of its development. Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I look at myself and I look at other survivors, like the ones who are immobilized and who can't speak and stuff like that. And then I say, why was I able to get better and physically and they weren't?
Oftentimes what happens is we describe it as growing into your deficit. Areas of your brain that normally would be silent as you're developing and aren't needed until later, everything you look like kids your own age because your parents are your frontal lobes, your teachers are your frontal lobes, and so areas that can be devoted to other functions take over areas, and you make those connections for other functions that you need. The problem is those resources are kind of lost when you start to grow up and need those other functions. So you just seem further and further behind. But that's because those other functions have to be subsumed to take over things that you need them for now. And so you never really develop. So you literally grow into your disabilities. And that's because those areas in the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex that are needed for, social and high, and abstract thought and things like that, the high functioning, never develop. And those of us with traumatic brain injury in those areas, we kind of lose some of those functions that we had. And so it's like you may be here, and whereas you kind of go the opposite direction, go up, but just never peak. And we meet in the middle there.
Mm.
That's why.
My stairway goes like this, and then sometimes it's
Kind of
flat.
flattens out, right? And then, whereas an adult with a developed brain goes down. And so, like I said, we kind of meet in the middle.
That is a very good way of explaining it, helping me understand it. My biggest problem with schools was the bullying. Like I said, and the teachers doing the accommodations, but
Well,
the bullying by the teachers.
you wouldn't have had, it's like your classmates at the age at which you're injured, you would have been like they are. But as they got older and you remained behind, as your development slower and flatter on that curve of development, they noticed that you were different, that you had a lot of the social problems, you had a lot of the emotional, and so they would, bully you over those kind of problems. Plus, you had processing deficits, and you had, physical differences, your eyes, which is normal for a person with traumatic brain injury. I mean, it's a little more subtle with me, but you can still see, this is down more, and it's like I had crossed eyes when I was born, and they correct them surgically. But after my first injury, it deviates again. So it kind of undid some of what they did surgically. And I have some other like subtle physical stuff. But when I got tired, you can really see some of the problems. And you would have had some word finding issues and other things that would have made you stand out too, and some mobility issues or hearing, and then just add all that together plus social problems, and then kids could be little jerks. And it's also the lack of the frontal lobe. And adults with lobe injury behave like kids.
And by the time I had gotten back to school, everybody, like you said, they get older. My mental processing was age of a toddler, just about it.
And it takes time to get back to where you should be, and then you still are behind because those areas of your brain are, yeah, that's why.
All
And
empty.
and if you do study neuropsych, if you do get into that, you will find out a lot of the details as to what areas are affected. And I try to explain some of that on the channel here, but I do want to avoid giving people the equivalent of a book that's that thick. It's very technical.
I mean, I could give people an equivalent of a book that thick about fairy tale, but if it's about
But it's like it's interesting stuff. There's no doubt about it. It's fascinating. How it shapes and makes us who we are.
I've taken intro to psych and what was the other one?
What was it about? Did you talk about development? Did you talk about mental health disorders?
I took intro to psych and early growth and development, or human growth and development.
Right. Because I taught abnormal psych for one semester at a local community college, and I taught intro. I had a lot of fun. Let me tell you how long ago. I used the DSM-4 to teach it. That's the book I had them get. It was a DSM-4 TR. That was a while ago. They wanted a PhD. I didn't have mine, so
one of the worst classes that I in college was public speaking. Yet I'm on here now making videos about brain injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I passed it
Yeah.
barely. Second time I took it. First time I dropped.
I really enjoyed my public speaking class, but I'm a big mouth, so you do quite well. You do well. Um, it's a matter of like the professor, the settings, the people you're with, how you feel about yourself, and you have a mission here. Everyone who talks here, they've got a mission. We have
I'm
purpose.
I only have a few credits left and I can graduate with my associates from the 2 times that I attempted college.
Mhm.
And I have to go on. Can I skip my bachelor's? Is that or do I have to get
You would
have
have to take a bridge class for that, as you need your fundamentals, all the, the usual. If you'd want to go from directly for your master's, and if you want to do clinical neuropsych, because you need your basically you've got 2 ways you can do it. You can do directly just for neuropsych, or you can go for your clinical psychology doctorate and then specialize with a focus area in neuropsych. These are 2 different ways to do it, and I should probably teach and like discuss how you get your become board certified in in neuropsychology, because there are like 6 or 7 different sub disciplines within it.
and
I was focused in clinical, which is treating people with brain injuries. But uh, if you want like to go all the way, it's like if you want to practice, you must be board certified. So
mm,
that's and depending on where you go, you'd need to complete your master's. And so some may bridge you in, but then you need to have the foundational psych courses as well. So, you need to have development, abnormal psych. You need to have statistics. You need to have, because it is a very statistics intense discipline. You need to have,
you think
um,
I can online?
hmm,
Do you think I'd be able to do it all online through a
mhm,
college? Because I
yeah,
cannot go to college away from everybody.
yeah, mhm, um, yeah. No, there are programs that do it online. You can go all the way. Um, yeah. It's just that you need to get those foundational psych courses, the foundation for it. Um, but yeah, absolutely, there are those. Um, to be honest, I don't know what has changed since I studied much. I mean, I know a little, but
That was all the
there
way
have
back.
been change in '94. Yeah, so there may be some changes.
About
So
three.
you just 30 years. Honestly, a lot of the found it's kind of like in medicine, because really it is a medical study. It is neurology, but
Mm,
neuroscience from the perspective of using psychological techniques. Heck, it was started by a physician, the field back in the 1800s. um so like, well, Dr. Wilhelm Wundt, that name should ring a bell if you've taken enough like psych. um he's one of the first to set up a psych research lab. He did a lot of like experimental psych. I mentioned him in intelligence testing, in my video on IQ testing. Um, he's kind of the grandpop of neuropsych, along with like Broca and Wernicke and some of the other names. Um, huh?
broke off. Yeah,
Broca.
I
Bro-
remember that.
Broca's aphasia. Hmm.
It
And
sounds
Wernicke. Yeah. But yeah, you can do a lot of the stuff. I think you can do the whole thing online now. So yeah, I mean, if that's your interest, but it will require you to do a lot of research to find like, because they're not as common as med school programs. But if you complete your PhD in clinical psych, you also can do then postdoc. At least you used to be able to do postdoc in neuropsych.
my
Division.
public speaker talked me away from getting my PhD. She said because of all the
You
they
must have to practice neuropsychology, you must have your PhD.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
different. There are two types of there are two types of doctorates in neuropsych. There's the PsyD, which is a clinician's degree. So if you're just going to practice with people and you're not going to do any research, that's your PsyD, your doctor of psychology, and there's your PhD. Okay. So if you're not going to do any research, if you're just going to be a clinician, then the PsyD is fine. And then
hmm
there's your PhD. So it's like the difference between, well, um, an MD is a clinical degree. PhD is like a research degree. So the PsyD is like an MD versus a PhD. Your PsyD is kind of like it's a newer doctorate, but it's just as valid. They'll pay your fees just the same. So then you look for a PsyD program, PSYD, and you do, like I said, it's more like hands-on with people. That's not a PhD. You don't do a thesis for that, I don't think. Again, it's been a long time since uh,
but I'm also considering just being a writer and writing a book or books.
okay.
Some of them don't have. We're not gonna talk about.
And that you can do right now if you really have the gumption.
I have 2 books written right now, but they do not need to be published because they're about a teacher. I don't need to say that out
Oh,
loud. They're
oh,
about somebody I was in love with in high
oh,
school, and it has our names in it.
oh. That's more a diary then. Although God knows
Oh, book. I used it.
Samuel Pepys and his diaries got published.
I named Shades of Gay.
So
Not what it's called. I'm sorry. It's brain injury. It
that's all
came out.
right. No sweat. So anyway, it's like, but if that's a route you want to go, PsyD is always an option instead of PhD. Um,
That would be a route because I'm good at writing, and that was my best classes through high school, and I took English Comp 1 and 2 in college, and I did well with the research papers in 2,
mhm.
but I the word thesis scares me. So I was never good with my biggest problem was the crediting.
Right.
It just copyright. Um don't write things word from word and just change a couple words because it don't make it your writing.
You know what? This video we're making is automatically copyrighted. You realize that, right? By law.
Good. And I hope that everybody in the world don't see this because of me being in love with a certain person and never mind.
That's okay. Look, everybody has those in like high school or junior high school. Everybody does. It's okay. Um,
with teachers, nothing happened. I was just in love
no,
with
no,
one
no,
of them.
no, no, no. That's all right. I thought a few were attractive.
No, I was in love with this one. It was like straight up. I want, but
Sweet. And I
everyone,
bet you the answer to that question is yes. A lot out there who were watching would say yes, they were.
I'm still in love with this one. But there's a lot of roadblocks.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
My
sweet.
to escape.
Huh?
My cat is trying to escape.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Tell you what. Then we'll call it here. So you better go hunt down your cat. So if you have any comments, if you want to mention about any teachers you had a crush on or anything like that, please make a mention below because it is normal to crush on a teacher or two. Um,
My
eh,
part of not normal. I went crazy. And
I'm not going to ask questions. I don't want, to know details, but it is normal. Comment below. Please like, subscribe if you have any questions for Amber, not about any teachers that you may have in mind. Please. I will delete those. But please share, like, and subscribe. You can see we can have fun and get some laughs here. Um, in all seriousness, it's like we can find a lot of funny things and a lot of joys. But education can be a challenge. And part of it is because a lot of people don't understand us, and this is what it's about. And, this is how we discover passions for, what we do as well. Please click like, subscribe, don't forget the bell icon, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.